Good evening, everybody. We are working on the Chapter 9 exercises tonight. Those begin at the bottom of page 406, where you see I am on the screen right now. We had a little bit of a talk before the video started about the contents of the chapter. I would strongly encourage you to first read the chapter and or watch the lecture videos in combination with it, and try to get a little bit of a grasp on how Ajax works, what asynchronous means, what promise objects are, what it means to defer, what it means to delay things or run things at the same time. I think that understanding is pretty helpful. All right, so given that fact, let's go ahead and pull the book off to the other screen here and start working on the exercise. So step one of the exercise says that we are actually going to create a brand new project. So let's go ahead and do that. So you're going to come up to New Project, and what they want us to create is an empty ASP.NET web application in C#. Now, I know we've gone through this process before, and we've had some issues with which project templates we're choosing because it pre-creates certain aspects. And I'm finding this one in the root of the project template. So you guys finding this one too? Okay. You guys notice what it says off here on the side? It says project templates for creating ASP.NET applications. You can create ASP.NET Web Forms, MVC, or Web API applications, and many other features in ASP.NET. Does that sound applicable to us? Notice it doesn't say empty, does it? No. All right. What might this be it? Well, maybe, but this is one of these newfangled ones that I'm just going to stay away from just because. But I'm actually going to come back to where I was before, and I want to just point this out again because it's easy to pick the wrong one. If I pick the wrong one, will it really make it break? Frankly, no. You just will have more stuff present than you need, and you'll also have like more menu options to choose from that are completely irrelevant to what you're doing. Really what we're doing is we're using the ASP.NET template to kind of give us the capability of having certain tools available without necessarily having all the tools available. So this is the option we're going to choose. And then under Visual C#, under Web, but you got to expand Web to get to Website to get the empty website. We all good? All right. They want us to name this animation example. And the solution name should include solution. That's what the author likes to do, so that's what we're doing. Did I ever tell you that I never do that? Okay, but this is what the author wants you to do, so thank you, author. I'm also making a really quick note here because this has been kind of burning me in the last couple months here, is look where it likes to put the solution file, somewhere other than where I put my project. I do not like that at all. I like the old-fashioned approach of putting the solution file with the project, okay? If you do this, it's not going to break anything. It's just going to be problematic if you try to pick up the project and move it. And those of you in my .NET class have probably been following along as I stumble with that in there with my two different Google Drives. All right. If you don't have that template, I will pause my video and come and help you find it. Okay. I was just going to ask the same. She is running 17. I'm wondering if you
updated it. They used the web paint to write a overhaul view.
Oh, they put it in a different spot? Okay. I'm pausing the video for a second.
And then they call 3D exposed it. But it's like in an old folder or something like that. I don't know why, but they did. They needed from web to 3D exposed.
All right, so the tip I just got from one of my students, Alex, here in class, is that he recently did an update to Visual Studio, and it doesn't say website underneath here anymore. It says previous versions, and the project template is under that moniker now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like one of my onliners. Let me see what. So just so you know, I'm recording your pop-up here. Am I sharing my screen? Apparently not, am I? I'm sharing my screen now. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. Or is that the right screen? No, that's the right screen. Okay. You know what? It's only Tuesday. Isn't that great? Okay. All right, so everybody do this part. This is step 2 or 3 or 4. Actually, this is step 4. Go ahead and click OK. They do want you to create a directory for the solution. All right, so we're moving on to step number 6, which is click OK. Okay, step number 7. That's pretty granular for steps, isn't it? Step number 7. It says to add a home page. Right-click the animation example project and choose Add, select HTML page. So we're just going to come up here, right-click, we're going to choose Add, and then we're going to choose HTML page. You notice it is on the hot list here, so if you want to go ahead and just choose that, that's fine. They do want to call default, lowercase. Then go ahead and click OK. They also want you to go ahead and do a right-click, set as start page right away. So go ahead and do that. That's a pretty simple little thing to do. And now we need to add jQuery to the project. So I'm going to come back up to the root of the project here. I'm going to right-click, and then I'm going to choose Manage NuGet Packages. And you guys, of course, have become experts on this by now, right? How to add jQuery to your project, pretty simple. I'm going with the latest stable version. All right, so it did drop the jQuery in there. I'm going to go ahead and close the NuGet tab. All right, the next thing that we want to do, this is step number 10 now on page 407, is they want us to add another JavaScript file. So I'm going to just right-click and choose JavaScript file right from the list here. And they want this one called, I just had it on screen, default.js. So default.js. Right, next thing they want us to do is come back up to the root of the project, right-click, and add a new folder. And this one they want called content. This time with a capital C. In this folder, they want us to add a CSS file, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to right-click, add, and then find style sheet on the list here. And this one they want called default.css. All right, now we move on to step number 12 on 407. They want us to go to the default HTML file, and then they want us to add a reference to the default CSS and the jQuery and the default JavaScript file. So let's do that one at a time. We'll do the CSS first, and I'm going to put it right after the title tag up here. Just drag and drop. And then I'm just going to follow the pattern. Next thing we want to drop in are the scripts. I'm going to drop in, let's do the jQuery first, just in case our default file uses jQuery. You understand the logic there. And I'm going to use the min library just simply because it's more efficient, basically. And then finally, a reference to default.js. So it should look kind of like that. Remember, if you're looking at the book, and I'm just going to pull it back over, and you see that jQuery says 1.8.2 here, don't type that in. That's got to match whatever's in your folder. Right? You guys should know that by now, but it doesn't hurt. to mention again. All right, next thing. Step number 15. It says add a div element that covers the screen with its ID attribute set to cover. Okay, well I'm going to tell you what. Here's one of those things where I go, that's not very clear to me. Is that clear to you? I don't think it's written well. But this is what I'm guessing. ID equals cover. Does that seem pretty reasonable? Okay. What I would like to see in the book is that they would maybe make that word bold or something, something like that, just to show it. Step number 14, and this is where you get the clue of what to actually do because they show you. Okay. And then they also want you to add one that says message box. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you notice as you're doing this, of course I forgot my closing bracket there, they're splitting the divs like this so that there's like a line in between. And that's fine. If you want to do that, please do. This one's ID is message box, and that is lowercase m, uppercase b. Also known as camel case. Add another div inside the message box and set its ID to message. Like so. Okay? You all good? Step number 17. After the message div, add a line break. So I read that as right here. I'm just going to type in my BR. Then add a button element right here. And the way that they have it in the book is button, guess what type it is, button, oops. And they want the ID set to message, okay. Close your bracket, and then in between the two tags, just say okay. Now, if I'm reading this right, and I like to think I am, I think I'm missing a piece here. So I got my message box, I got my div ID message, but now I'm looking at the book code, and this is my conundrum. Did you guys notice that they also have a div ID message content? We didn't do that. Did you guys see a step for it? Okay, what step was it that I missed? Oh, that one. Okay. So the message box needed to go inside message content, or its message content goes inside the message box. Okay. I see. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this div since I need those tags anyhow. Then I'm going to change this one to content, like so. And then inside here, and I'm going to just truncate it so it kind of looks like what's in the book. This is kind of what they have going on. And then really this closing div is going to be down here. And then you see Visual Studio very politely reformatted everything so it looks nice. So this looks okay. This looks like what's in the book. Notice that they also have another button happening, and that's right below the other div, or the last closing div, right here. And this is another button of type button, and the text on it says show message. At this point, we are going to switch over to our CSS file, so bring that one up. And let's start adding some of the CSS in here. I'm going to leave the body tag alone for right now. I don't see anything initially they want us to put in there, but they do want us to add a style for the ID of cover. And I'm beginning by typing this because there's just a little bit on the bottom of one page, and I think it's easier than trying to copy and paste it. And the directive there is just display none. Now, here's the technical question. Why on earth would I bother to create some HTML content and then tell the CSS not to display it? Yeah, you're going to display it later, right? I guess you guys are learning something. All right, I'm going to add the rest of the CSS here for this section. Then step 19, we're going to add some CSS for the message box. This stuff's pretty easy. This is all copy-paste. Also going to add some CSS for the message content. Not a bad time to do a Control-S to save, folks, if you haven't yet. I kind of do it automatically. I will tell you that. Sometimes I don't mention it, but you should be in that habit. Anytime you make a significant change. And the thing that's triggering in my mind a significant change here is now I'm going to move from CSS over to one of the JavaScript files, so it's probably not a bad time to do a save. Let's go over to default.js. And in here, we're going to add a few lines. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a reference path. And then we're going to add a couple of variables, but you know, you're going to see this reference path is going to be initially broken because I do not have that version of jQuery, so we must correct. And see, isn't it wonderful how it just figures it out? However, yeah, very intuitive. Yeah, it doesn't for me because I have them in, and you know, maybe that's like a clue to me to go back to here and actually just get rid of the min for now. Because I don't want to create any conflicts. And you notice I'm also doing a save. Notice also that we're dropping in two variables that we're going to use in the project. And one of them is for milliseconds. So we're creating a variable called milliseconds. And obviously, to control the number of milliseconds something takes to happen. How many milliseconds in a second? 1,000. That's just good to know. And apparently we're going to be controlling the opacity of something as well. Next thing that we're going to do, step number 22, top of page 410, is we're going to drop in a function here. And notice what this does. It says display cover async. And if you look at what it does, it says return. So you run a function and then return something. And what it does is it selects the thing with the ID of cover, and then it fade to means it fades into view. So it starts invisible and then appears. How long does it take? Well, that's part of the promise object then, right? Something that we're kind of determining, but what are we going to determine it with, do you guess? Right, well, it says right here, milliseconds, right? So over the course of a second, we are going to fade in the content. I don't know if you guys noticed this effect on a lot of websites. A lot of websites are using it now, and they just use it as part of like their standard libraries of whatever system they're using. But it is kind of weird when you go to a website and the content just pops up. They don't do that on television. Do you guys ever notice that? Even if it's slightly perceptible, there's usually a tiny little fade in that happens with most visual content. So really what they're trying to do here, folks, is they're giving us the capability of going from something not visible to visible over a short period of time. And I'm going to tell you, a second is pretty long, actually, for a fade in. But you watch websites when you go to them, like really well-designed ones, that the content just doesn't pop. sometimes it just slowly fades in like that. And it's kind of a nice visual effect.
I'm assuming you can just put in the numbers there instead of the variables.
That is absolutely correct. So Jason's question was, basically, could we just type 1,000 in here and 0.5? Sure. Yeah, you could hard code it. Right. And then that's really subjective. The thought, Jason, as to putting it into variables is, if you're doing that effect on multiple objects throughout the site, you can change the code in one spot and affect all of them. That's the rationale. Whether it's necessary for a simple application like what we're doing, probably not, but still the technique is important. All right, next function. Wait, that's the same one, right? You got to copy before you paste, folks. All right. All right, this next one, and you see the heavy usage of jQuery here? Why? Because it's just easier. It's really bottom line. What do you suppose show does? Maybe shows something? Okay. What do you suppose HTML does as a method? Well, let me give you a clue. Have you ever seen the JavaScript command inner HTML? You guys have done that one? That's the same thing. So basically, I could take a message, right, which obviously we're going to populate as a variable somehow, or grab from a form or whatever it is, or you could just drop HTML right into that spot. That's considered inefficient, though. It really probably is better to store it in a variable and then...
So that's just part of jQuery syntax.
Yep.
If you put in HTML, it's over.
No. The whole point of the jQuery stuff is simplified method calls and things that make sense. So show, hide, move, etc. And that's why people love jQuery, because all those libraries make it so simple. All right. Step number 24. It says add a show message async function that has a message parameter. Right. So if you were to look at this step here, and I'm going to kind of put it on screen strategically, I'm trying to say that. All right. Perform step number 24. You guys are experts now, right? You should be able to figure that out. No, just the trick is go to step number 25 where they show you what to type in, and just and paste it. Because I wouldn't anticipate at this point in your programming careers that you'd probably be able to do that off the cuff like that. All right. Moving on to the next method, so we're at step number 26, and this one's got a couple of parts to it here. We are going to drop in basically two methods. I'm going to bring them in pieces here. So the first one is this one's called display time async. So guess what that does? It pulls in the time. But then we're also going to have a function called getTime, which is actually going to do the mechanics of pulling back the time. I have to paste this in two sections here because it bridges pages. And yes, it does use built-in JavaScript functions to make this happen. Step number 27. Maybe not a bad time to save. They now want us to add a snippet of code with the document ready function. And the interesting thing here is because we didn't do the formal lecture here in class, right? But there's a concept here of what we call subscribing to an event. So what we're really doing here by adding this piece is we're putting in a little script that's waiting for the click. So whenever we're waiting for a click, it's waiting for an event handler to trigger. And that's called subscribing to the event. So we're kind of waiting for it to happen in order to trigger it. And that's actually the last piece for this one at this point. Now, step number 28 says, go ahead and press F5 to run the application. So go ahead, save your work, hit the play button, and let's see what happens. That's really exciting, right? You notice how the hourglass is still up? Is that happening on yours? Ooh, fancy. Now, although that's pretty primitive looking, haven't you seen this type of thing on websites? A lot of websites are doing this type of thing. And what I want you to really pay attention to as I refresh and hit the button is watch how the animation appears, moves, and all that. And think about the timing of it. Describe to me all the things that happened on the screen. Yeah, we just made a pop-up ad, right? Thank you very much, Alex. Right, the background changed first, and then the box appeared and came down and expanded. Can I click OK? Does it do anything? No. Can I refresh? Sure. Could I go back and change this to maybe 2 milliseconds and save it and try running it again? In fact, I got to refresh it to make sure. Yeah, the box expands as well. Now, this is the weird thing about this. We really used a number of different techniques here. And I want to point out where the effects are coming from. So clearly this controls the timing of it, right? So by just changing that, you can change how fast it happens. We had the fade to, the slide down, the show. I'm trying to find all the graphical effects here. I guess that's the predominance of them. Is anybody here right now taking the graphics programming class? None of you guys? Okay. That's part of the old degree program. I know I have a few people finishing that. But in that class, if any of you are scheduled to take it in the summer with your old degree path, we do a whole lot of this kind of stuff in that class. I think it's a lot of fun. All right. It says in step number 28, notice that although the show message button is still visible, you can't click it now, right? Was that the case? Furthermore, the OK button isn't programmed to close the message window. When you click the OK button, the message window should slide back up and disappear, and the cover should fade out. The show message button should be clickable. Did that work for us? Did that work for you guys? It didn't work for me. No, it's not supposed to. Why? Yeah. All right. Good. Somebody's actually reading. Thank you very much, sir. Step number 29, stop the application from running. Okay. Step number 30, a little more code to throw in. Now, I got the document ready function at the bottom. Is that where I should put it? Could I put it at the top? Does it matter? I'm actually going to put it at the top because I think it's a better place for it. That's just me. Some people also put that on their actual main web page, just as a point of reference. Adding step number 30 here. This is the hide part. Notice the command that hides it. That's pretty simple. I like it. What does hide do? What does it hide stuff? Okay. Next step, number 31. This is going to work in conjunction with that, and instead of fading in, guess what? We're going to fade out. And then in step number 30 here, or excuse me, 32. So we're not just hiding the cover, but also hiding the message. Now, the thing that I want you guys to notice is where the promises are used. Notice that there's also a pipe command. What does a pipe command do? Well, it kind of forces them to run in a certain pattern. Because if you think of if you push water through a pipe, the first water molecule that goes through should be the last or the first one to come out, right? You're kind of pushing them through in order, basically, is the thing. Finally, we're going to come up to the top here and change our document ready function, folks. And then we're going to add a subscription to the other button. Right? Right. It makes sense that the show message button worked because we told it to listen for a click. We didn't do that with the other one. So no wonder. All right. Control S to save. Hit play. There it shows. Remember, I got mine running in slow-mo here. All right, we're done. That was an easy chapter, right? Yes, sir. We are taking a break now. We're going to come back and move on to the next one. You guys ready for that? All right.